background 24/7. If they're powered on, they're recording, and then when you hit the button, it's when it saves that recording to be entered in as evidence, and then the other stuff just gets overwritten over time. So Oracle does have the capability to do that, and they do that. So in that sense, but this is so different than our squad cameras. They do the same thing. One second, I got a weird box in my computer. Um, but there is no other AI on the computer itself that's like facial recognition. The other part of the AI portion is on the redaction side. So if law enforcement deputies come to my house and they're for whatever reason and they're wearing body cameras, and then later I want to request a copy of that that video, but I had guests over, those people would need to be redacted from that video. Their system has the ability to, once you identify a person in the video and tell it to redact that person, it does have the ability to kind of follow the camera around and then redact them from the video to save on redaction time. So maybe that's where Oracle is really trying to push this AI buzzword, but in its current form, that is what it can and cannot do.
Okay. And that to me sounds like a real elaborate name for body cameras.
Pretty much, yeah. And we had, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We do. So we have these for the next at least 5 years, and then after that point, maybe we stick with Oracle, maybe we go to a different company. But I mean, I think they're all going to kind of be very similar as far as the service and the technology that they have.
Okay. Again, a little different change in what we're talking about. I know that within your staff, particularly your deputies, patrol deputies, there are very few female officers. The question is asked, and apparently there may have been some personality issues, or if you will, that way. The question is being asked is there training with the male employees to embrace working with more females? And is the department making any sort of effort to add females to your staff, particularly when it comes to dealing with victims of domestic abuse or rape?
So I want to say that the national average for females of law enforcement is about 10 to 12%, depending on where you're looking and what study you're looking at. And we're kind of right in that average. I think we're about 10 to 11% female licensed staff right now. We probably have more females today. I have to go through and look at the actual numbers, but we probably have more today than we have ever that I can recall. So I don't think, as far as statewide agencies, that we're doing any better or worse than anyone else. I think we're kind of right in that average number. As far as recruiting them for a specific role, we have currently one victim advocate female that does most of the work with our domestic abuse victims, CSC victims. We do have a co-responder unit that I was very behind and worked to get that started. That's also a female deputy paired with a female mental health provider. So they will follow up with wherever they're asked to follow up with. If the person wants to follow up with our co-responder unit, they can. They also respond to any kind of mental health crisis call. They'll also follow up with calls that came in when they weren't working. They'll check the CAD notes and CAD record, and then follow up with those individuals that may want or need some services. Even if they get somebody that does want a service, or they go to a call and they respond, they'll do the initial follow-up. They'll follow up usually 2 weeks later. So there's a continuity of care with that service. As far as additional victim service advocates, I know the county attorneys also have one as well. I could see that unit expanding, especially as the population grows, just because more people, you're going to have a greater need. So that would probably be a position we'd look at in the future to expand.
Okay, very good. Um, Two more very quick questions when it comes to dealing with ICE is one is does your department have the jurisdiction to request that an ICE agent remove their mask? And the other question along similar lines is does your department have the jurisdiction to enforce things like speeding, not having a license plate, parking on private property without permission, etc.?
Yeah, the face mask one, no, we do not. It's a federal rule, so they're allowed to do that if they choose. The plate one and the speeding one is an interesting question. Speeding, we could because just because you're in a squad car doesn't mean that you can break the law. You have to be responding to an emergency and have lights, your lights activated. Otherwise, you're violating the law like anybody else. So yes, the license plate, I would have to do. So I don't want to give an answer on that because I don't know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And like you said, it's not like we're trying to back you into a corner on any of these things. And
No,
we understand that. The next question I have is what is your approach to community policing and how would you work to build trust with all the residents, including immigrant communities, people of color, particularly uh, in the aftermath of what we're seeing right now?
I'm a pretty big proponent of community policing, just community engagement in general. Previous sheriffs have always been really big on community service to the community engagement. I think we could do a better job when it comes to, we do like all the city events, pretty much any city function, we're probably going to be there throughout the county. But that's kind of, in my opinion, the minimum we should be doing. There's probably things on top of that, getting out into particular neighborhoods, hosting certain events where we're out there, people come engage with us. Kind of like the Night to Unite, I think is a good example of a nationwide community engagement. But we could do that outside of just that one day a year. Other events to get us out there, because also people want to know who the deputies are that are patrolling their city or their community. And unless you call us or you run across us at a holiday station or a quick trip, you're not really going to see us, except driving by your street. So it's different for me because with 25 years, I look at it differently than a new kid out of school who's got 2 years on, who's ready to fight crime and evil. Um, doesn't always have the drive sometimes to want to get out and talk to people because believe it or not, they actually are kind of shy about just doing that. So you gotta push them out of their comfort zone a little bit and get them out there. But we have a lot of people who I think would be really good in those roles, myself included, because I like people and I like to meet people. So um, I think increasing that community engagement and getting out in those particular neighborhoods would be a huge benefit to both them and us.
Um, Questioning still along the lines of training and your deputies, is there a plan for training, additional training in the areas of de-escalation, of bias awareness, of use of force?
So we do all of those things. Those are annual trainings. Use of force. There's three 1 hour courses and then three additional in-person trainings for any kind of use of force. So they get a fair amount of that. Uh, Bias training is required by our post board. There's certain things like bias crisis intervention and management, certain ones that the post has mandated that all cops have every license cycle. So we usually do that every year. Um, was it a part of your question? Sorry, I kind of.
Well, and what is um, the how do you build the trust, rebuild the trust that we know is quickly being eroded by the federal agents in our area.
Yeah, I think that's where our community engagement and transparency come in. I think just continuing to really push those training initiatives, get out there in the community, and I think over time, you know, positive interactions are going to help overcome that. Outside of some of those things, I mean, the federal agents are not doing their local agencies any favors when it comes to positive view of law enforcement. I can tell you that.
Okay. Next question is, do you know the numbers, and can you share that number of Wright County residents with criminal records who have been detained by ICE?
I do not know those numbers. I do have the numbers as far as what people in our custody that we've received an ICE detainer on. So quick thing with ICE detainer, I describe it, it's basically a post-it note that says, hey, we'd like you to hold this person until we can come get them. Well, the Minnesota courts have ruled that state law enforcement or state jails in Minnesota can't do that. You can't hold somebody beyond the point where they would be released either on bail or RPR'd. So if we hold them 1 minute longer than the judge says release them, and the time it takes to just to process them through the booking area, we would be in violation of their civil rights. That decision came out of Nobles County, probably in 2014, 2016. I have to double check the year. So when we get an ICE detainer, what we can do is we will notify them if the person's going to be released. Like they go to court and they get bail set at $1,000, whatever. If the person's going to get released, we will call ICE and let them know, hey, this person you sent a detainer on. We're not going to hold them, but they're going to be released in the next 90 minutes, 2 hours. If ICE is there in the lobby to pick them up when they get released, so be it. And if they're not, then they're not. The person's gone. But those people that have been picked up obviously were in our custody because they committed a crime. And those ones, we're looking at, so just give you a number. So every year we book about 3,800 people into our jail annually. Last year, ICE picked up from our custody when they were released 7 people. So the percentage is pretty low. And those we're looking at DUIs, domestic assault, out of county warrant. That's pretty much between those 3 things. This covers all 7. So there's probably another 20. Oh, then 22 we had ICE detainers on that they did not arrive in time and they were released. So.
Okay. Back for a moment to kind of the training side of things. Question is asked, what happens if a deputy oversteps his or her authority? What is a process for working with that?
That would go to an internal. So it depends a little bit on what overstep they did. Were they rude? Is it a complaint or a concern? Is how I categorize them. If it's a concern, then it can be just addressed on a supervisory level and with documentation, of course, in case it happens again, then we're in a different territory. If it's a complaint where, hey, this person violated some civil liberties here or broke a policy, super unprofessional, then it would go into an IA, an internal investigation. And that's a whole process. Minnesota has what's called a Peace Officer Bill of Rights. It's actually in statute that kind of dictates how these things are going. It's very formal. The deputy would get an allegation of misconduct. They get to know what the complaint was against them. They get the opportunity to be interviewed and give their side of the story, to tell us information that we may not know that might affect discipline. But in the end, if it was a policy violation or a civil liberties violation, there's going to be accountability and there's going to be some kind of discipline and eventually progressive discipline if it continues to happen again.
Okay. You mentioned that that part of your job now is working with the budget for the department, and maybe for the folks you want to remind us of how large that was. But the question is how would you manage that as sheriff? How would you manage that budget, and what would be your priorities for allocation of available funds?
So the current budget is about 50 million. That's not all levy dollars. So levy dollars means it's what you're actually paying with what your tax money is paying for. If it's levy dollars, you're in like the mid 30 millions for our budget. The other part of that comes from revenues. So like we get paid for borders and other civil things that we do have to pay people pay the county to have us serve papers and that kind of things. But so our overall budget is 50 million. Um, of that, about 65% is just going to be staff wages. So that's already earmarked for personnel. And there's a large percentage that's going to be for equipment. Like we buy X number of squads per year because everything that the sheriff's office has is on a retention schedule from how many bullets we got to buy every year, how many new guns, how many squad cars, how many like the kitchen equipment, the ovens in the kitchen in the jail are on a replacement schedule because everything's got a structure for everything. Um, so the other large portion of the budget goes to things that we call it the stuff and things budget, where the stuff and things you're going to have to buy every year. So there's really about a little less than 10% of the budget that's actual discretionary spending. And a lot of that's going to be on what additional trainings we want to offer people. Is there stuff that happens, like you get a large call out, like we had in St. Michael a couple of years ago that took, 40 plus hours with 40 to 50 staff, at any given time throughout this big, huge ordeal. That's pretty expensive when it comes to paying people their overtime rate for this type of thing. So you got to have some buffer in there to help cover that. Um, so the discretionary portion of it is really looking at what additional equipment do we not have that we need, like forensic computers. Our UAV program is kind of the technology side that's growing. Everyone's getting into more and more drones because they personnel wise, it's just a huge savings. If you're searching for a missing person, yes, we can have a bunch of people do a grid search in this field, or we can send up one drone and in 15 minutes have this whole thing searched and done. Um, so that's kind of where the discretion part of the budget gets spent. Um, I think being a good steward with taxpayer money is pretty important. So you got to make sure you're not spending things frivolously. Technology is great, but I'm not an early adopter of technology. I'm like a mid-level adopter. I only want to spend money on technology that I know has been proven to work and has value. Otherwise, I think it's just a waste. I don't want to be the testing agency for new stuff. Um, Otherwise, you're working with the county board, and the county board is kind of your banker. So you got to make sure that you're working with them to be fiscally responsible. They're looking at the overall levy and the overall county budget. So you you gotta you gotta do your part to spend wisely to get the things accomplished that you're looking to push forward, but not spend frivolously.
Very good. Question is asked about um, what are your major concerns for the Wright County Sheriff's Office short term, say within the first year when you're elected and take over in January for that next year, and what about say 5 years down? So what's your 1 year plan and your 5 year plan, if we will?
What 1 year plan and 5 year plan? So 1 year plan would be to internally strengthen our just overall leadership. I think continuity of leadership is important. Sure, the sheriff can set the tone and the command staff can be on the same page. But if your sergeants on the street aren't on the same page, or if the communication gets a little wonky, then we need to make sure that we're all sending the same message. Um, I want to make sure that we've got a really great training center. I want to make sure that we're providing high level training to our staff. Um, I think that's, training, a good wellness program, and just support for your staff are the things that we can do to help build a good culture that, in addition to a competitive wage, you can, retain and keep good staff and hire good people. That's going to be one of the major challenges, I think, in law enforcement moving forward. It already is. There's more people retiring from the profession than there are people coming into the profession. So we're all fighting for the same good candidates. So I think good positive culture, good training, good equipment, competitive wages are how we're going to make sure that we stay competitive in the marketplace. 5 years out, I want to probably expand our co-responder unit. I think that has value. I want to expand. We've got what's called a jail restoration program. We've got a social worker that was 20 hours a week that's moving to 40 hours a week that basically works with inmates that are about to get released to help make sure they've got service that they need. They have housing issues, financial problems, and need to get on some county services. They're looking for employment. She helps with those avenues for soon to be released inmates. That's been a very successful program. I think there's room to expand that. We could probably have 2 full-time staff. That's kind of working with the county board to get that pushed forward. As I'm sure Rose knows, it's sometimes getting your staff personnel through a county board process, budget process can be challenging. Um, I think we're going to have additional issues with population growth. Every city in Wright County is growing. With that growth comes additional hours they're going to need for their contracts. Additional hours means more people. Um, it's great for them to want to increase hours, for us to ask them to increase hours, but we need the staff to do that. I think those are going to probably be our biggest challenges in the next 1 to 5 years.
Yes. Okay. A question in regards to the actual election. The question is how many candidates do you expect to join that race to run against you? And are you, this is a little ambiguous, but are you anticipating any other officers from within Wright County Department? Or are you aware of others coming from outside the area?
I've heard rumors of a few people, but until somebody actually publicly announces or files, I guess I'm not sure. We'll all learn this together in the next few months.
Yeah, and I realize that that's speculation on that part. What would you like to see from, in regards to your department, what would you like to see from organizations like Wright County Indivisible?
I think just a good open line of communication is important. I don't always, I'm going to know some of the issues that you guys might see that are occurring in Wright County.
Sure.
So just having that conversation and knowing what you guys might see on the horizon or as issues. I can't address what I don't know.
Okay. A question has been asked by somebody that has witnessed federal agents, as they put it, committing serious crimes. Under your leadership, how would Wright County Sheriff's Office respond to a situation like that?
So it kind of depends a little bit on what a serious crime is. I mean, we're going to work with our county attorney's office, AG's office to determine what level of crime this may be. And then, because part of the issue is we don't know who the federal officer is unless we're present on scene and can identify them. I mean, like you said before, they've got masks on, so part of that is going to be identifying who is who during that altercation. We'd have to work with the county attorney's office and probably the AG's office to determine whether or not we can or can't charge on that particular crime.
You mentioned again the masks on the federal agents, and I remember I was part of some of those meetings with Sheriff Derringer as well, and that question came up to Sheriff Derringer. I guess I'd like to know um, your opinion on the masking or not of any law enforcement officer.
As a general rule, I don't love it. We're supposed to be out there serving the community, and I think you're not building very good rapport if you're covering your face. A few years ago, we went through a pandemic, and then everyone's wearing a mask. Maybe that's a little bit different. Um, in situations like this, I think it's better. You're better off, and you're going to have a better buy-in and better community relations if you don't cover your face. That said, I'm not. The reason they do it is because there's people out there who are trying to do internet research as far as find out who these guys are and dox them and harass their families. That's the reasons they're giving, and I'm sure some of it's true. Um, so maybe they want to argue the other side of it, but as a general rule, I'm not a fan.
In regards to that, um, I have to believe that some of your patrol officers and investigators are doing some things that are not very popular with some folks. Um, but yet, I've never seen a local law enforcement office of any sort um, allow their officers not to positively identify themselves with a badge and a name tag and face open. Uh, but yet people seem to think that it's okay for these federal agents because their families need to be protected. If you're arresting my brother for some sort of major crime, I'm not going to be very happy about it either. So why is a local agency, it's not okay to mask them, but yet the federal agents, it's okay?
Different rules of engagement. Minnesota's got a law that if you are asked for your identity, your name and badge number are one of the things that you have to provide. The federal government doesn't have that, as far as I know, and they don't have the same rules of engagement that we do. I mean, this states can offer their citizens more rights than the federal government if they choose, and Minnesota has chosen to do that.
Very good. Well, I am not seeing any additional new questions in our chat. Um, Sue, did you want to?
Well, the only thing I'd like to ask you, Matt, is so you've been hope I didn't feel like being drilled. Maybe it was to a bit, but you've been asked a lot of things, and I guess I would like to know, do you have any comments that you want to make about the questions you've had, or things that you think have been brought to your attention that you need to look at, or just a general, so how was it for you?
Um, by and large, it was good. Do I feel like I got grilled a little bit? But I kind of expected it, to be honest. Um, I'm aware of what the hot topics are of the day, so it's fine. Uh, this is a this is a I'm not a politician, so I'm a cop who has aspired to take various leadership roles, and I've tried to learn those as best as I could. And I think I'm in a good position, and I'm well suited to take on this next challenge if elected. Um, but again, I'm not a politician, so I'm trying to answer your questions as best I can and be open and honest and just be myself. So I hope that be able to glean a little bit about me and where I sit on some of these issues. Again, this is a nonpartisan position, so I don't want to wear my personal politics on my sleeve. I know that some sheriffs in the past have done that, some have not. I choose to hopefully not do that. So
I'm very glad to hear that you don't want to be a politician. Thank you. Um, People are not always going to agree with you, but I really feel when you were talking about communication and being open are words that I appreciate hearing. I need to know that you are going to be somebody that we can work with, and whether or not we get protocols written and in place, well, we'll see. Um, but anybody else? Is there anything glaring that we've missed, or should we let them off the hook, or what are you thinking?
I got something
Any
to say,
comments?
if I
Go
can.
ahead.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Um, I want to thank you, Matt. I mean, this has been tremendously educational, I think, for everyone, at least for me. Um, Even more so than hearing you about you as a candidate. You know, educational in the sense of how things work within your office, and your command of the subject, and obviously your rise in the ranks. You've really seen how everything works, and you're certainly qualified for the role that you want to be elected for. So I just want to point that out. Maybe that was part of the grilling, but I really appreciate your effort. And yeah, it's, I remember in past elections, I mean, there were people from outside the district that got in the race, you know, and it always felt better looking at someone who was already within the, especially if we're feeling good about how our office is going, it's nice that you would follow suit, like you're saying, continue the trajectory that the department has been going, as opposed to someone coming in and shaking it up. I mean,
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. And I know when we're all human, and so we're not going to get everything right all the time. I think owning our mistakes when we make them and doing our best to fix those is what the community and what I would expect.
I
So
see
Matt,
a number of chats saying thank you for your time and your effort. Somebody else had something they wanted to say. Go ahead.
I did. I know a number of folks at the Wright County Government Center, and try to go to the meetings with commissioners and things like that. And um, you are very well liked there, and I like that in the past. And I don't want to kind of bring up any weird stuff, but there was problems with I think um, leadership in the sheriff's department that was more my way or the highway kind of an attitude. And they were quite happy about finding someone in this position that they felt would respect both the people that were served, us, and also respect the opinions of the folks that are on staff at the government center.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't claim to have all the answers, but usually you can find them, and if you surround yourself with good people, that makes your life and your job a lot easier.
Ooh, wise words. Very good. One more time. Anybody else want to jump in? Or should we let this man go and have a break? Oh, by the way, people, at the very bottom of your screen, there's a thing called React. And if you like what Matt said tonight, you can click on there. And there's cute little things like thumbs ups that you can send him and little hearts. And whatever the mood is, maybe the thing's splurting out. Matt, we'd like to thank you for your time, for your honesty. I really feel that you took our questions seriously. And yeah, no, we're going to be around, and you're probably not going to hear the end info from us, but that's okay. We're all good.
That's good.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here tonight, for the questions, for the time and the energy. Yeah, we will see what happens in the future. So thank you all for being here, and hope to see you next month. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.